Hey y'all. Well, I had someone ask me, how do you make your bags out of feed sacks and pet food bags? So I thought, well, I'll make another video that's in more detail so I can show you exactly what I do. The first thing that I do with the bags is decide what I want to show up on the front of the bag. Usually the back of the bag, there's usually not a picture or anything like that. So I look at that and I look at how big I want my bag to be. Most of my bags, the height is going to be anywhere from 14, 15 inches tall. That doesn't include the gusset at the bottom. I gusset the bottoms, which I'll show you how to do that, and where you can open them up and they sit flat, like a the paper bags that you used to get at the grocery store. So what I have to do is, once I determine if I want my bag 14 inches tall, I add an inch to the top because I'm going to fold down the top and stitch it when I do my straps, the handles. And then on the bottom, it's a 6-inch gusset. So I sew it with a 1/2-inch seam allowance. So I'll add 3.5 inches to the bottom. So if I was making a 14-inch tall bag, I would add 1 inch to the top, 15, and then there would be 18.5 is how tall or how I would cut my bag. And I try to decide where I want the picture and cut that. And once I've cut them, I use a rotary cutter and a mat with a large see-through ruler. It just makes it a lot easier. Make sure that it's straight. So I line up the edge of the ruler, or a marking on the ruler, so I'm cutting them straight. And then I use a dishwashing detergent and a scrub brush, and I clean the outside. Then I turn them wrong side out and I clean the inside, because that's really the dirtiest part. And the feed will get stuck in the weaving. Pet food has oils, and so that I use a Dawn dish soap so that gets the oils off. And then I stand them up and I let them dry. And then I'm ready to sew. They're already wrong side out. So what you want to make sure that your bag, you've got your seams on the side, and I'm going to sew a seam across the bottom of the bag, and I'm going to do a double seam. And I start by sewing a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I'm not worried about back stitching, because when I gusset, I'm going to be cutting that corner off anyway. Get to the edge, I just lift my foot, I flip it over, and then I sew on the outside of the seam I just sewed. Now I'm using Wonderfill is the thread that I'm using, and I believe it's a 60 weight. I ordered it online, and they use this for outdoor upholstery, outdoor umbrellas, and things like that. So you want something that this plastic's not going to cut. And I've been using this for quite a while, this weight thread, and this is the first time I've ordered from this company. Where I used to get it, I couldn't find it anymore because I always got it at the quilt show, and the last time I went, they weren't there. So Wonderfill is where I get my thread. So I'm going to stitch another seam so that I've got a double seam on the bottom of my bag. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch here. And I'm done. Now, I don't like to use my automatic cutter with this thicker thread because a lot of time it doesn't do, it hangs, so I'll cut it that way. Now I'm going to show you how I gusset, and I usually get, I like to wear quilting gloves with this. You can see how even though I wash the bags, they still do have some feed, but most of the time it comes right off. So what I do is, unless I don't have my tripod up here, so we're going to try this. I'm going to gusset. So I've got my point here, and what I do is this seam, I match it up to the bottom seam on the inside. So I flatten it out like this, and I put a pin there to hold it, and then I use my 45-degree angle on my ruler, and I want a 6-inch gusset, and this happens to fit just perfectly where my 3-inch, kind of hard to see, I'm lining up that 45-degree angle, and my 3-inch is right there on the point. And then what I do is I take my Sharpie and I line it all up, and you'll see that the 6-inch is going to be over here, and then you have where your 0 is here, and I draw a line just like that, and I do that on the other side, and that's going to be my stitching line, and then I'm going to stitch a second stitch on the outside of that. So I'm double stitching the entire bottom. So I'll do this other side, and I'm making sure that my seam on the bottom is turned the same way. So I match that up on the inside to my seam on the bottom. Get that there. I put my pin. I use my ruler and my 45-degree angle that's on the end. I put my 3-inch mark on the point right there, and my 6 is here, and I draw my line. Right, so I'm going to sew. Those lines, and we'll come over here. Let's see. I don't know if I can get this to work here. I don't know if that's going to work. Probably not. Alright, so I'll go ahead and sew my seams. Now, I am going to back stitch here. And also I'm going to back stitch over the bottom seam when I come across it in the middle, just to give it a little more reinforcement. And then I'm just going to back it up and go back across a little bit to the right of my seam. And done. And I'll do that on the other side. This is going to give me a nice flat bottom on this bag. All right. So I do my trimming here. I take my pins out because I'm finished with them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off this point, and I'm going to leave, I've got 2 rows of stitching, and I'm going to cut about a 1/4 an inch from that second row of stitching on each side. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting off the point, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And now I'm ready to turn my bag right side out. And this is where I like having these gloves also, so it doesn't tear my hands up. And I just make sure that I get these points all the way down. Okay, so I love this bag. I love this rooster. This is a 25-pound bag of feed, so this is a smaller bag. So you can see that it sits flat on its bottom there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten my bag out because I need to find the center here. And so what I do is I measure to find the distance. So this is 18 1/4 inch wide across the top. So what I do, that would be 9 1/8. So I measure 9 1/8, and I put myself a little mark. Then I measure 2 inches to the side of each mark, of the mark. So I'm going to measure 2 inches to the right and 2 inches to the left. And then I'm going to hold my bag and I'm going to mark that on the other side also. This is going to be for my strap placement. All right, so I get my straps from Strapworks. That's where my question came from. And what I do is I cut it 24 inches long. So I do 2 of these, 2 straps. And then on the end, you can either light a candle or use just a lighter. I just do a little melting there so that it doesn't fray. Now, normally I put my label on. I have a label that I put on. But when I do these, I put it like this. And normally I don't clip it, but I'm going to clip it for y'all. And then you come, make sure that it's not twisted. And then you come to this side, right there. And I sew that about my seam here. I'm going to stitch across here and stitch across here. And then I'll do the same thing on my other side. Okay, so I've got 4 inches across here. I'm going to go ahead and stitch those here. And my seam, I use, you could do it at 3/4 inch, and but just make sure you don't twist your strap. And I do a double stitch backwards, and I come across. Let's see if I can do this. It's hard to see with this bag anyway. And I come across, and I'll move it toward the top of the bag, kind of like I'm just zigzagging across the top of the bag. And then I'm done there. And I'll do the same thing, where my scissors. Give it a trim. Do the same thing over here to this one. Back. And I trim all my excess thread off here. So it's kind of, I'll just go back and forth, back and forth. So after you have sewed both those on, then I just turn my bag just at that top stitching there. and I take my scissor handle and I'll lay it down and go across, and once I've turned that all the way around the top, then I stitch about a 5/8 inch down all the way around, and that's how you make a bag. So I hope that was helpful. It takes about 15 minutes once you get the hang of it, and I do assembly line with mine. So wish you luck if you want to make your bags. Bye, y'all. So I'm finishing up my stitching around the top. I had folded down the top, and I'm stitching a 1/2 inch from the top edge. I started at the center back, and I'm finishing at the center back, meeting it up. It's best to have your arm here on your machine to where I've taken off this part, so I just have this arm, and it makes it a lot easier. And I use the needle down function, so when I stop the machine, the needle stays down. That way I'm able to move my bag, because the plastic doesn't fold around as easy like cloth does. So I trim things up, and you can see how I have stitched all the way around. I had my little labels in the center back, Susan's Little Chicken House, because I sell these on Etsy. I sell them at the farmer's market. So now I have a nice bag to use at the grocery store or for a gift bag. And whoever's sacking your groceries will thank you, because they just open it up and do like that, and it sits flat, and that will hold a lot of groceries. Even this 25-pound bag, there's your bottom gusset. This 25-pound bag will hold 2 gallons of milk, no problem. You know, these were made to hold a lot of weight. This is a woven polypropylene, so when you're using your bag, I have found that that's the easiest to work with. Some of them are just a slick plastic. That will work. It's just it's stiffer that way. Even, you know, this one is the bottom of the bag. You can see where this is where the bag was stitched when it had feed. That's okay. There's holes there. It's no problem. You can wash these out with soap and water if they get dirty. They're great for the beach. Gift bags for people who like different animals. So I hope this was helpful to help you see how I make my feedsack totes. Upcycling. It's a good thing. Bye, y'all.